What's up, guys and gals? Once again, playing catch-up chapter month with Record of Ragnarok, Shuumatsu no Valkyrie, and I mean, you guys can tell if you watched my last review, I could not wait. The moment I hit end recording on chapter 94, and as I said with the title here, the conclusion of the sword, I'm quite sure that my prediction, quote-unquote, was pretty correct. I'm sure most people at the time when this came out guessed that 95 was going to be the end of the fight, and here it is. Now, I couldn't wait for the end of this fight. I still think the ending is great, but I do have a slight problem, but it's overshadowed by the greatness of this round. In all honesty, this was a great round, great fight, great characterization, and all that stuff. There is a problem at the very beginning of the chapter, for me. Because remember when I just talked about, well, I was here 5 minutes ago, maybe this review doesn't come out for 3 days after 94, but to refresh you guys' memory, I said that the yin-yang parallel and the intertwined backstory between Soji managing to complete a style that never had its final technique, pretty much, the ultimate way to utilize the style to its maximum, to its pinnacle of what that style can do, and Soji figured it out, didn't live long enough, and now has been able to have this second chance to reach this pinnacle in this fight with Susanoo. And it was a great parallel that Susanoo watched Okita, the man and he even says it here, the swordsman and the man he admired the most, after watching countless swordsmen over the years with his ravens, with everything, while living in the cave, practicing and mastering every style and every technique he could, view time and time again. The thing about that for me was that he had finally found his own sword, in the fact that he was inspired by Soji, who never gave up the blade. Even when he could no longer wield the blade, when he was bedridden, he still crawled out of bed, coughing up blood, he still wanted to fight, he still wanted to be a part of the sword. That inspired Susanoo so much that he's reached his own pinnacle at the end of chapter 94, where he, like Okita, it doesn't matter if he has a blade or not. He can still wants to wield a sword no matter what. And he created his own invisible sword, the unarmed sword. And I said at the time, that has been in manga and anime and stuff before. It's been in TV shows. It's been in stuff before, right? But I thought it sort of showed that he was done mastering everyone else's sword style. He was done learning from all the humans, and finally Susanoo had found his own true sword. His love of the sword, his passion for the sword had created the unarmed style. A sword that the unwielded, I don't know what to call it, the invisible sword, but the unarmed sword itself. He needs no sword, and yet he can still wield a sword, because he's the god of swords himself. I like the poeticness of that. I like the romantic notions of that. And here, at the beginning of 95, they kind of screw it all up. So I'm not a huge fan of this. It doesn't take away, in my opinion, it takes away from that beautiful yin-yang parallel from the last chapter, that they both reached a pinnacle of their own style that nobody else could achieve, and they both achieved it. Susanoo was done mastering other styles and had finally found his own sword. You could still argue that it is his own sword, but still. And then Soji had done the same, mastering the style that no one else could figure out how to incorporate all the techniques into one flowing maneuver, and he did it. The Black Heaven attack, the Black Kite's Heavenly Return. He finally found the pinnacle of his own style. This is all great, but here in the beginning of 95, it showcased that masters, and it's cool in a pocket chapter. This is a cool explanation, showcasing guys like Master Roshi level old, being total masters of the blade, and being able to cut what wants to be cut and cut through iron, diamond, and steel at a whim. True mastery of the sword, right? And being able to cut rock even without a blade. And we see this old man, a master of the sword, finally swinging and finally cutting through this giant boulder, right? And it's like, huzzah! And boom, he cuts through it, but it's too much because being able to cut through things without a sword surpasses human logic. It surpasses human limits. And so it ends up taking their life. To be able to do that, to master a sword to that degree is still beyond human comprehension. It's beyond human limitations. And so when they finally do achieve this, it ends up being too much for their body, too much for their heart, too much for everything, and everything basically, you die, right? I'm like, okay, kind of didn't need this. And we see Susanoo in his raven form or whatever, in his raven bird thing that shows the mirror, is looking at this. So this is just, once again, another technique that he wanted to achieve and he never did, and now he's achieved it. But it's like, I really preferred it being Susanoo on his own, you know? So that was a bit of a caveat. Now, after that, as I said, in a pocket chapter, that's not a bad explanation, and it does work as he has finally mastered because they're saying that this is the pinnacle of any weapon you choose. Your fists, your bow and arrow, the sword, whatever, is to be able to do it without the weapon itself. You're so fucking you're such a master of this. You can punch without raising your fist. You know what I mean? You can punchless punch almost, right? You can strike without striking. Like this is, and I'm like, okay, that's a novel idea, blah blah blah, and so within that it's okay because it doesn't diminish the rest of the chapter. Okita's on the ground. Susanoo's like so happy. This is the unarmed sword. The pain feels good, so it even affects him as a god. He starts to crack and everything. It's like, okay, so he wielded it once. Something that would kill and surpass human limitations. But he's a god, okay, but it's still, the damage is great. And once again, Susanoo has taken a lot of damage in this fight already, so he's certainly not at 100%. How many times could he swing this? Normally, at 100%, maybe 4 or 5. I'll give him maybe 5 at the best before his life gives out. Like, this is how dangerous this is. And Okita's just like, absolutely, and I love this translation. I don't know what the other translations were, but he's like, seriously, the unarmed sword. Fuck me. And I'm like, yeah. He's like, so, because every swordsman probably knows about this, and it's just like something that nobody attempts because everyone knows. You master something to that level, great, but you never get to use it because you die the moment you figure it out or the moment you reach that state. So it's like Nirvana, but you die. I've achieved Nirvana. So it doesn't work, right? So, but I love Okita's like, oh my god, I just defeated. I broke his sword. I got through his defenses, and I just got to fuck me, and stuff like that. So. But they both agree that this is way too much fun. They have both surpassed their own limits by fighting each other. The classic move of two, rivals clashing. It's fantastic. Susanoo even admits he can't continue to swing this blade, so he's only got basically one move left in him to his own ideals. So he says, like, all right, any longer than this, and I won't be able to go on. So I will claim victory here. He comes down to slash. Everyone's focused on it. We get the dialogue from Hermes and Zeus and everyone's like upscaling this. Everyone's like, they've reached the pinnacle. They've reached the pinnacle. The Shinsengumi is looking on, going, come on. How can Okita continue to do this? This is crazy. It's like, we will watch our little samurai become the way he wants to live, his true samurai swordsmanship, and we will watch it to the very end. And it's all very inspirational. It's all very nice. So both of them having the mutual respect, face off in a very like Old West style, in a very kendo style way, a sign of respect that, all right, you have your stance, I have my stance, and it's like, all right, we exchange words sort of idea, like, the joy of being to fight you is unparalleled, like, and I feel the same way about you and stuff. The mutual respect is there. It's awesome. We get all the onlookers, and Susanoo brings down the invisible sword, and it's just the unarmed blade comes down, strikes, and once again, it's able to hit. It's sort of doing a hockey thing, advanced hockey, where it's hitting inside. So the blade, it's hitting like a reverse blade sword across Okita's body, but then it's breaking his bones, it's shattering his organs, it's hurting everything else. It's not cutting him, it's cutting the inside of him, and it's just like, all right, this is I mean, it's mythical, it's awesome, and it's fucked. But still, so he does get hit by it. He tries to block what he can, seemingly blocks maybe none of it, we have no idea, but that seems to be it for Soji. And he says, like, this is too much. Like, you know, I did give it my all. My body can't move anymore. I think that I can finally die now as a samurai. But the cheering of the entire Shinsengumi at once elevates him to stand his foot one more time and try to get one more thrust in. He remembers all the time he was dying, and like, this pain is nothing because he slowly was dying for an entire year from tuberculosis. He remembers the pain of no longer being able to even swing a sword properly or hold a stance. He remembers crawling and writing down all this stuff, and it's like, all right, this is good, this is beautiful. It's like, yeah, this might be pain, but he has experienced death before. He died in a miserable, terrible way, and he didn't die comfortably. They didn't have the medications for that and shit, like, you know what I mean? They didn't even know what it was. So he died coughing up blood on his own blood, you know, dying slowly and painfully every day, unable to do what he loved. This pain is nothing to him, and he is able to fly one more time, and he lurches forward for his triple demon thrust, his 3-sword strike, and he rushes forward. I have one more. This will be the Samurai Okita Soji's final attack. And he rushes forward. Susanoo realizes that even now, you can still swing your sword. Like, he's just absolutely amazed. However, and it looks like Okita's thrust and his weight is giving out, and he just can't make that last step, and he starts to fall. Susanoo raises his arms for another strike with the unarmed sword one more time. Unfortunately, your sword can no longer reach me, and he's going to come down, and that's when Okita points his blade forward while falling, and the blade continues to thrust him forward. Susanoo is shocked, the blade continues, and boom, he gets the Heavenly Flight 3 Demon Stage Thrust, and reaches Susanoo. The blade made him fly, and it's great. Susanoo's there in the open stance. Boom, boom, boom. Holes punctured through him and everything. And he thinks Okita lands just shy of Susanoo in that, right there in front of him. Susanoo's in his stance. It's like, this is all great and stuff. Susanoo has this word where he says, like, this little speech here while he's still holding, and you can see all the whirlwind of all the power around his invisible sword still going, and he's just like, if you yourself can no longer fly, you let the blade fly for you. And I'm like, that's what happened, because at first I didn't understand what was going on, but Susanoo's explanation really helped with that, and I was like, okay, so why was he so shocked? And it's because Okita had started to fall, but the blade carried him that difference in the distance, because he was short of being able to attack Susanoo, and the blade carried him that much farther, because Okita is loved by the sword as he loves the sword. I like that. I like that idea. And he's just absolutely, he's like, you're the man, you are truly the man I admire the most. And then he comes down to strike. Okita can no longer lift anything, and boom, time is up. He can no longer swing the invisible sword. His arms completely shatter into pieces along with the rest of his body. Now, I would argue here, we'll talk about this in a minute, so we'll get to the end of the chapter. So, Susanoo officially loses here. The gods are beside themselves. Susanoo is actually happy. He's a little sad that he will no longer be able to swing his sword. However, you know, and even Okita, it's actually a very heartfelt thing, because these are two people that respected each other. This is what reminds me of the Jack Heracles thing, is that Jack wants Heracles back. He's like, you're the one man who tried with me. Like, out of all the people, you actually fucking gave a damn and tried. There's a lot to unpack there. We could go on for an hour about how Jack feels about Heracles and how Heracles feels about Jack. But Jack wants Heracles back no matter what. Right? That would be his one desire, is to talk with him one more time. So here we have the same idea that Okita doesn't, even though they had the time of their lives and this fight was fun, they wish they could fight for eternity, but somebody had to win and somebody had to die. And now that Susanoo is dying, Okita's crying and thanking Susanoo so much for being able to, for everything. He gave him a chance to push his sword back to the limit. Something he was never able to do, to bring the pinnacle of his style, something he left incomplete. and then give him the fight that pushed him to the absolute, like, he gave him everything he could want as a swordsman. It's absolutely fantastic. Ragnarok round 10 officially ends with a win for humanity, and Okita wins. Now, this was a good chapter. As I said, I have a problem with the beginning explanation for how he's using the unarmed sword. I like my theory better from chapter 94, but it is what it is. It doesn't take away from the emotional end of the chapter. It's quite good, and the choreography was fine as well. I like the way it didn't end on real bullshit or anything like that. Plus, we know for a fact Susanoo was already beat up. See, this is why I don't mind the way this ended. Susanoo was already beat up. This move, the pinnacle of swordsmanship, kills its host. By swinging it once, you should die. Susanoo's a god, so we give that a bit of a berth, right? A bit of a wide berth. Okay. So the thing is, he swung it once while already damaged. And it started to crack him. By swinging it once, he was already getting cracked quite a bit on a good portion of his body. Then he swings it a second time. By all accounts, that's twice. The second time, okay, pushing it, and you're already heavily damaged. Then the third time. My belief here is that Susanoo was pushing himself to the absolute brink. He could have struck down one more time, but the damage from the three strike demon thrust did enough damage. It mattered. It did enough damage that no longer his body could take the accumulated damage from doing 2 of those sword strikes, plus the accumulation of damage up to that point, plus that final attack. Susanoo's body could no longer handle any of the damage, and that's why it burst. Could he have struck down a third time and survived? Even that is sort of, I think a fully healthy Susanoo could probably do this strike 3 times at most without dying. 4 would probably kill him in the first place. A fully healthy Susanoo, maybe he gets to 4. 4 strikes and it nearly kills him. At best. Because this thing, he even admitted, doing that one strike, he was like, this pain, and you saw it, all through him in the silhouette and stuff. So it's like, okay. So this all mattered. This doesn't feel like cop-out bullshit, like he was about to strike and then no, he didn't. And it's sort of a parallel to the Herc thing. Herc could have went down for the punch, chose not to. It is what it is. Some people don't believe that, but come on. He had time to actually still put his arm down, hug Jack, and talk to him for a whole goddamn paragraph. He could have finished the blow. He chose not to. Here, Susanoo was going for the strike, and his body finally gave out. Because of the accumulated damage, it makes sense in this regard because Susanoo had, this is something that would kill any superhuman or not, would kill them by doing it once. He did it twice while heavily damaged, and then he got mortally wounded, or nearly mortally wounded, and then tried for a third. It just wasn't going to happen. Would he have survived if he didn't try for the third and build up the energy to keep the invisible sword? Maybe, but I doubt that too. I think that final attack, because they even list the final attack, he didn't really self-destruct. The final, the finishing move was the 3-stage thrust. So, yeah. I really do think that was the final attack, and would he have been able to swing the third time and survive? Maybe. Maybe. If he hadn't taken that last attack? I'm not sure. But either way, I think it worked out. I don't think there's anything wrong with the way it was concluded, the ending. Everything worked out fine for me. What do you guys think? I know this is 4 months old at this point, but I think it was a great conclusion to one of the better rounds since round 4. We always use round 4 as our benchmark. First 4 fights were great, and then after that they sort of petered off for many different reasons. But I really think that this is probably the best round since round 4. I think it's the best one since then. Not shitting on all the other fights in between necessarily. Some of those fights were quite good as well. But this, to me, has been the best one. Round 10 is the best one, personally, for me, since round 4. With character writing, with no bullshit. There's been very little bullshit, no real interruptions, which is a big problem with round 5. Round 5 in the anime is actually much better, and I enjoyed round 5 as a fight a lot more in the anime than the manga because the manga made so many pacing mistakes, right? Didn't really happen here in round 10. So, but yeah, I really do. I think this round was great. I think there was so much to... There's a lot to discuss on this one, really. But overall, I think I've said all my points, very in enough detail. And as I said, it's like 4 or 5 months old at this point. But yeah, maybe once again, once we catch up and stuff like that, maybe I'll do a stream and we can discuss, Record of Ragnarok as a whole. Maybe we'll do something like that, or we'll be able to discuss this more at length with everybody in the chat and stuff, and see what people are saying, see what people agree with and don't agree with, and like, no, round 10 sucks because of A, B, C, D reason. I'll be, oh, you see it that okay, and or maybe there's something I'm missing. Do people like round 10? I don't know, because trying not to be spoiled, I've been staying off, of course, of any Reddits and Discord chats that involve Record of Ragnarok as a whole. So, until I get caught up, of course. So, is what it is. But yeah, I couldn't leave that knowing that there was only one chapter left after reviewing 94. So here we are to review 95. Really, not exactly quick. To be fair, it's the end of the fight. I had a lot to say. What's a 20-minute review? Normally it'd be like a 45-minute stream. So I think we're all getting off easy with this one. Anyways, so that's it from me. Chapter 95 complete. Round 10 over. I expect we're going to have at least one chapter of, basically aftermath. Maybe half a chapter of in-between round shit. And then probably by the end of 97, we'll start round 11. Maybe beginning of 98, we'll start round 11, would be my guess. But who knows? Who knows at this point, because we're coming down to the wire. There's only so many rounds left, right? So, anyways, like, comment, subscribe. We'll see you guys back here next time for the catch-up month of April. And hope you guys are looking forward to it. I know I am, because I really like this round. And I hope that the Record of Ragnarok, after taking this, extended break, Record of Ragnarok is actually really doing it for me again. So I'm hoping that this trend continues and I'm really back into this series. And this just isn't a fluke that round 10 just happened to be exceptional. And that Record of Ragnarok is back in action, So, but that's it for me. Have a good one, everyone. Sayonara.